At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Dalida, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to this. I've been fascinated by the people that have reached out that we've been able to connect with from all over the world. And where are you at right now?
I'm in Serbia, in
Wow.
a little country in the Balkans where a lot of things happen. And it's lovely to connect with you right now. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So at this point in time, you own an academy that teaches people how to help other people from a transformational standpoint.
Yeah.
What brought you to this point? What is there a story behind what you're doing now that you could share with the audience?
Well, I'm like, do we have only 45 minutes just for this?
So keep it fairly short.
Yes. So, there are many phases that when we present ourselves, and then there can be this professional line of how I got here, and it can be like a career building and the exact steps. And then there's a personal story.
And I'd appreciate the personal story.
Yes, yes. So, I'm back in Serbia. It's actually, I never lived in the country called Serbia. I left Yugoslavia when I graduated from university. I studied Chinese language and literature, and I went to China. And kind of like the journey unfolds there. It's not that I had a job. I went with minimal funds. I don't know if I had. Sometimes the number comes that I had $150, sometimes $300, but definitely not a lot of money. And a lot of people came to help, and there were some people that needed help themselves as well. And I met those scarred people and got scarred as well. It was about drug addiction and the feeling lost and so on. And even myself, there was a lot of socializing going through alcohol and everything. So I really, like Pinocchio, ended up in a place of now forget everything that my father taught me and just go and release the anger about the war. So there was war in Yugoslavia at that time, and I ran away basically. So I had a bit of chaotic 6 years of feeling lost in that anger and different path that really took me away from my dream life. And when I was 23 at that time. And then when I was about to turn 29, I thought something is wrong. I actually, I had these big dreams of who I was going to be when I'm 30. And I thought, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to go and think of my retirement. And there I was DJing part-time. I was working in consulting company, also freelancing, beautiful job. That's actually what set the tone for my coaching. We were doing team building with different multinational companies, but that was sporadic outdoor education as well. And that's where it all hit me that I was not really following my dream, and that my actions were completely different from the way how I perceived life would go. And just around that time, there was also bombing of Belgrade, and that hit me really, really hard. It was daily thinking, like, will my family survive? It was just, internet was just happening, and I would be with people on Yahoo Messenger at that time. And then they would say, oh, gotta go to shelter, the bombing here, the planes are coming, and then those moments of silence, of not knowing what was going to happen. So the amount of stress and this still going into what was my reality, what was I experiencing, a lot of successful people around me, a lot of talks about building China, hopes for a future, while on the other side at the same time, I'm hearing these survival mode reflection from people that I really cared about. And then I thought how I was wasting life, knowing that I had all of those things present and a lot of opportunities. I thought I have to change something. And the change that happened was really about me starting to practice Tai Chi and internal martial arts. So my life completely flipped from one reality, from long nights, alcohol, drugs, sleeping at 4 or 5 a.m. and waking up at 10 and being hangover. And now, so we are talking about 1999, sometime October, I'm going early in the morning at 6 o'clock. I'm going to the park to practice Tai Chi. And I see people drunk lying on the side of the street. And I'm just looking at them and thinking, I could have been that person.
So when you practice Tai Chi, it always is curious to me, you know, when we think about Tai Chi and we see the videos, people in the parks and they're moving along and so forth, but there's a whole philosophy that I think a lot of people miss. When you were studying Tai Chi, were you studying the philosophy also?
You can't study one without the other.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's like it's all connected. It's not a physical movement, and it's really cultivation of mind, body, and the spirit tags along with it, at least in the way the methodology that China teaches it. I had the chance to connect. I mean, I just went to a park and I'm like, I'm looking for a teacher. How does one find a teacher, right? Like, so that was the first thing. And I was looking and looking, and then saw a woman who was leading a group of 100 people, and she was a referee for competitive Tai Chi. So she actually introduced me into competitive Tai Chi, and after 8 months, I was competing. I won some medals as well, and it was a lot about the structure and the physical aspect. But when I asked her, for example, why are we practicing? And she said, well, we are practicing so that our mind and body can be aligned fully. And she said, and if you can manage to be aligned with your mind and your body for 10 seconds, that means that you're a master.
You know, when you say that, something comes to my mind from just a previous podcast that I did the other day. And we were talking about people as they age. And they kind of get to that point where they start to feel the victim of aging. And yet, as you talk about the mind and the body becoming one, and we had talked about how important it is to just accept who you are at any given moment in time. And if you can do that, it makes such a difference in your mindset, in your attitude, and so forth. Could you elaborate a little bit on that when you talk about the mind and the body becoming one?
Well, to be honest, it really didn't speak to me in the way how I was taught through internal martial arts, because I explored later Qigong and Xingyi and Bagua. Those are Chinese practices. It was only that I understood what they were talking about, and we are talking now about maybe 15 years after my practice started.
Yes.
that I came to mindfulness, and a lot of things then settled, and I understood what they were actually talking about what is the final goal, but the methodology was not really there. And that's what they were saying. It takes 10 years to become master, if you're lucky. I mean, it takes a lifetime, you know, like, but so what it means that mind and body are together is that, so there's this capacity for the mind to gain awareness of the inner experience, physical experience. So I can be aware right now, well, you know, like I have a bit of tightness above my left eyebrow, oh, like I just misspelled eyebrow and I said eyebrow. So there's a bit of shame comes in. And then I'm noticing, oh, you know, like my shoulders are a little bit tight. So, and I can relax. And my practice is enabling me to have a real-time experience what's happening in my body. So my mind can be aware of that. And then our body can be aware of our mind as well, right? Sometimes I can feel agitation. So I mentioned a couple of things, tightness in my shoulders, but I also mentioned, oh, a bit of shame, like I made a mistake, right? And so that is the interpretation of the mind. And that direction between the mind and the body, when we find stillness and grounding in that, when we find an element of trust, that attention provides a lot of nourishment for our mind and the body. In a way, we can actually have capacity to hold the pain with same awareness and not be taken over by it. And that's, I mean, when we say aging, right, like there's pain, this body starts giving up. And so that's one element. Another one is our motorics are not the same as well, right? Like I'm a little bit clumsy, and it's like I have now taking care of my parents as well here. So it really having insight about that. But so we don't connect mind and the body to prevent things from happening. We don't magically forget that we are aging. But there is some grounding and confidence that comes from acceptance. It's like, oh, this is what aging brings.
So we talk about aging. Let's talk about other things and how mindfulness helps. Because, as you know, I'm sure with people you've worked with, there's a lot of people that have experienced some type of trauma in their lives. Some very serious. Others, their perception of trauma, someone else would look at it and go, no, it's no way. But it doesn't matter because their perception is some type of trauma, some type of suffering that they're experiencing. How does the mindset and that awareness move into that so that as those things come up, you're able to, as you say, be aware of them, but not let them control your emotions or your mind to the point where you are now a victim of that versus you're really in control. Something comes up, okay, I get it, and you move it to the side or wherever it goes, but you're able to continue on consciously with that mindset of being one with yourself.
Well, one thing is maybe I can share that it's not really being in control, because that would go against mindfulness. It's actually we are learning how to control and still be grounded. So being grounded doesn't mean being in control. It's a little bit like when the wind is blowing and the tree is there and it's shaken by the wind, the tree is not controlling the wind. It's just keeping its roots there, right? And that there's a lot of benefit from the tree actually being shaken by the wind. The roots get stronger. And maybe there's pollination and, you know, the seeds kind of let go and so on. So I think our perception that we can control anything and in life is actually the problem. This is where people have expectation. I'm going to be able to be in control. It's like, no, we are not in control, but we can be able to just like, like water or the tree, to kind of like swing with it and not completely lose ourselves. So
Well,
that
yeah.
is it.
And I probably shouldn't have used that word. I think it means something different to me than it does to you. But
Yeah, yeah.
maybe a better description is conscious awareness, how we can be consciously
Mm,
aware of
mm,
ourselves, of our mindset, and all of that, so that we are literally moving in a very positive direction and not being the victim of any of
mm.
those subconscious thoughts, emotions, and so forth that get triggered all the time.
Of course. That's the practice. It's really the practice to understand first the mind is going to go through the doubt, like why should I be like I'd rather escape and not really go into feeling or feeling pain or being aware of all of that because it brings discomfort. And victim is just one of the ways of protecting our system. There are different sabotaging strategies, right? Being fully in control is one, being, like perfectionism is another one. And these are defense systems that we have developed in childhood for whatever reason. So now this conscious awareness can help us to, in a way, detach from automatic response to life pressures. See that these urges come up. It's like, oh, there's victim wants to step up and save me. And then making a conscious choice and saying, well, there is another way. I can choose another way, not the victim. Victim, my child created a victim as a way of escaping from whatever was happening in my family, in my education, because kids are shamed a lot. I mean, at least our generations, like, and I would assume that we are rather closer than the Z generation. I'm closer to the Z generation now. I don't know if this is making any sense, but maybe Viktor Frankl said between stimulus and response, there is a space. Between that space lies a freedom to choose our response. And that's what this conscious awareness is. It's not only about holding something, like if you're holding a hot coal, you're going to throw it. You're not going to burn your hand. If it's burning too much, you're going to stop. But to make that choice consciously, it's like, I'm dropping the coal versus reactivity or the victim mentality comes in. It's a lot of that here where I am, and I have it as well. It took me a life change just to be able to monitor when the victim comes in, and the victim was like, oh, here I am, it's the war that happened, and without any support here, and oh, look at the kind of like people that I met, and now the mess that I'm in, and on the top of everything, I'm gay as well, and like nobody likes me, and many reasons for that victim to really be present. And then it's like, wow, this is hard. And then the practice brings a compassionate element. At least that's one element that not many people mention. Compassion is really big part of it. When we can warm up to our experience, be soft and gentle rather than critical. Because if I'm critical of my victim or cut it off, it's going to be removed for a little bit, but then it's going to come so strong when I least expect it.
Well, and let's talk about compassion, because I think people look at compassion and understand it differently. It's been fascinating to me as I've moved over to Thailand and the different culture that I'm experiencing here. And recognizing that words mean entirely different things to different people and different cultures. So when you talk about compassion, and particularly compassion for others, but compassion for ourselves, elaborate on that a bit.
Although maybe I will just give brief sentences and then I'll give you space to ask maybe a question. Again, I can just go off on the tangent here. So there may be two wisdoms. Well, I'll share three short sentences. One, meditation without compassion only strengthens the ego. Compassion without self-compassion only strengthens the ego. That's not compassion. And compassion might be perceived as something soft and weak, but it has two sides, and compassion without strong boundaries is also really not compassion.
So
it's not sustainable.
What is your definition of compassion? You've said what it's not, what it is, but what's your definition?
Yeah. So my definition would be it's a state of presence when we are able to perceive the world in such width and breadth in a way that many elements can give us the sign of what is really going on at any given moment. And compassionate presence with self-compassion is really about the capacity to hold ourselves with understanding of what is going on in the internal world. And compassion, then it spills over into compassion, which is really about this deep understanding of what others are going through, what their pains are, and what their difficulties are, and then being compelled to act based on that.
Well, and it fascinates me. I love theology, and what comes to my mind is that one main thing that's said in the New Testament: love God and love others as yourself. And I'm just not quoting specifically, but as you talk about compassion, what came to my mind as you were talking about it is the fact that true compassion is really true love for ourselves and for others as we really experience that. And you mentioned meditation and, brought that in as far as without compassion, meditation is no good. But I want to talk about that too, because as we start talking about developing compassion, developing all of these aspects of mindset and so forth, I think one of the most important things that has come to my mind is, again, be still. And that's not easy, but what are your thoughts about the importance of being still, and what difference does that make in one's life when they can learn how to be still?
Well, first, the moment we become still, our mind is going to be agitated. So that's completely against everything that the mind feels comfortable with. Some people, not many, would find themselves in this sense of, oh, this is it. I've been longing for this. But many practitioners are going to actually find a lot of pain, physical, mental, emotional, just from being still. When we are still, we can notice, right? So when we distract ourselves with all of these things outside of us, it means that we don't have the capacity to be still and hold what is present. And so compassionate presence means that we somewhere in our practice discovered how to develop relationship with pain. In Buddhism, it says suffering, right? So it's basically that we cannot avoid suffering. pain or difficulties, whichever word is right for anyone, they're present. We are going to get sleepy when we can't sleep. We will be hungry when we can't eat. These are some simple ones, right? Like that is also difficulty in life. And then the scale can kind of like go up, and as you mentioned, trauma before and so on. So our relational presence when these situations come up, when suffering or difficulties are present, this is the training of compassion. So one voice can be inner critic. Oh, you fool! Why did you allow yourself to get into such a mess? Or like, you should have eaten before you left home. Or like, today I went to Bancomat, to ATM, and it took my card, and I didn't have the phone. And can you imagine the inner critic? It wanted to go at me. It's like, oh, how could you leave the house without the phone? Call the service to give you the card back. But then I sat and I was like, wow, this is a difficult moment. And then a guy was passing by. I said, hey, do you have time? I need help. Can you call? And he called. And the moment he called, the card came out. And thank you. It was a very nice moment of connection. And he was so full of reassurance. He's like, we'll sort it out. Don't worry,
Well,
And so that is the thing.
yeah, and you talk about suffering, and I look at, I've studied Buddhism a lot, and I find it's fascinating how he taught that there's, four different levels of suffering. Of course, the last two are you're not suffering, but also then he talks about the Eightfold Path of how you overcome this. And I find it fascinating as I look at that and then look at Hinduism. I haven't been able to quite find the same philosophical aspects to that. I'm sure it's there, but I haven't been able to find it. You get into Christianity, and of course, everyone kind of interprets it one way of, well, he's paid for my sins and so forth, but they still suffer. Whereas if they were to look at it as though, I've suffered for everything, so just take my hand. And as you're suffering, take my hand and I'll help you through it. So I think that it's interesting that we can either become the victim, and we've used that word a lot today, we can become the victim of suffering, or we can recognize that, what, that's part of life. What am I going to learn? And what can I be grateful for that is going to affect me in a positive way or others in the future?
Mhm. It's true, like it's different cultures, different philosophies. They do have essentially very similar messages. I mean, we know Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism. Perhaps it's like the terrain is different. So you're in Thailand. I lived in Thailand for a year. Like right now it's beautiful weather probably,
It is,
but
yeah.
most of the time it's like wet and humid and humid and hot, and I suffered a lot. Nobody could understand why it was so difficult for me to live in Thailand when everything is so beautiful, right? So this environment where those teachings have been created is really important. Also, the cultures are very collective in the East, and in the West is very individualistic culture, right? So there's one person taking suffering for everyone, and kind of like just release that. And there's something for the psyche, I guess, that is important for that message to be accepted. But ultimately, all of them are saying there is suffering and there's a lot of hard stuff happening in the world. There's these demons in Hinduism. It's all these demons that come, and we constantly need to fight against demons taking over. Buddha came at the time of Hinduism, right? And he came from a palace, from riches, and realizing that all that money doesn't do anything, right? So it's but he went to famous teachers who already had a lot of students. He went to kings directly. Those were his students at the very beginning. he didn't need to explain to them how to, if he was saying to them, like, just take the robe and let's go and back, it was the practice. It was necessary practice for them because they had everything.
Yeah.
So within that, there was something important on how they could understand suffering. In the West, it's Jesus who was carpenter and then went and, you know, suffered in his own way and stood up to the bullies, you know, and said, it's not like it's love, it's not what you're talking about, and so on. So they have different messages, I think, based on the context, and we are trying to pretend as if it's, to take it into the modern life as if it's the whole truth. But one thing I like about the Buddhism, it's like the saying, when you meet Buddha on your path, kill him. There is no Buddha. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no glorifying. I mean, it took I don't know 250 years, I think, before they started writing first teachings of Buddha to make records, right? So how much was diluted by that time because he was like no teachings, no.
Exactly. Yeah. And now there's at least, what, 5 different sects of Buddhism.
At
So
least, yes.
that gets to be fascinating too. But I think, you know, getting back to what we were talking about as far as suffering goes, regardless of what your culture is and what your beliefs are and so forth, my sense is that yes, we all suffer, but the important thing is how do you approach that from a inner, mindful, conscious way, so that rather than becoming a victim of that, you recognize that that's just life and you move forward in a positive way. Because as you do that, suddenly the suffering kind of minimizes. What's your thoughts?
Mm. Well, you know, like I approach these practices a lot from the secular perspective, and there's a lot of psychology behind that, and research, and why it's working, and all of that. But so what is important to know is that we have illusion that we will not suffer. We have, and I found myself quite a few times in that space, like, oh wow, look, I just came to the place where life is great. I have everything. And then a bit of time passes and it's like, oh my God, I lost everything. It's like, what do I do now? So we forget that in the moments when we are feeling good about ourselves, that there's no permanence, right? Like, so there's something about accepting impermanence of life and
Yes.
everything that is happening, and not being taken by it into a dark side. So not being cynical about it, not being, you know, realistic or pessimistic. So these are some, again, like, let me not notice beauties of life. So I'll just kind of like see the dark side. So there's always bad stuff happening. That's not right. But our capacity to be present when pleasant things are happening, and knowing that that too shall pass, and just reminding, but then savoring, nourishing, experiencing joy, right? And then when difficult moments come, also remind ourselves, this too shall pass, and know that even at that time, we can still find the moment. So this is the teaching, and I think it's really hard teaching, especially when there's collective suffering, and we see a lot of people suffering around us, to find that moment of things like, oh, it's just this sunshine on my face, or like, there it is, I managed to connect with a guy by Haiti and he helped me. He doesn't know anything about me, or I got my card back, right? I'm like, I'm having my cat on my lap right now, and God knows what's going to happen, but I'll just stay here. And this is the teaching, is that we do have capacity to experience joy no matter what.
Yes. And, what's interesting to me, we talk about being still. We talk about, we haven't, but we can talk about solitude versus loneliness. And
Mm.
so many people experience, quote, loneliness, and I think kind of try to stay away from that. And yet that sense of
Mm.
solitude makes such a difference. I just got back from Phuket for a week in Thailand, which you're aware
Mm.
of. It's on the beach.
Yes.
And in fact, the picture that I have behind me right now, I took while I was on a cruise. And
Mm.
what I found was we did a cruise, as I was just laying in the pool and so forth, it was fascinating to me that as we were getting ready to go to the airport, and you've been in Thailand, you know how horrible the traffic is.
Oh,
And it drives me crazy.
yeah.
And
Mm.
we got in the cab, we started going, there was a lot of traffic, and I stopped for a minute and I thought, I'm not getting frustrated. I'm literally just feeling peace. I'm not getting frustrated. Why? And then I realized
Mm.
because I spent a week, and it wasn't all just relaxing, but I literally spent a week in nature, in the water, in the pool, just relaxing for, a long time. And somehow that solitude, that being still made a huge difference in my attitude, at least for that day.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts about that? Why is solitude so important? And recognizing that solitude isn't loneliness, it's a conscious choice to be still with oneself and with
Mm.
the universe.
Well, yes. I mean, the power of nature, right? You mentioned connecting with water and moving within the nature. Nature has that capacity to heal our nervous system if we just are present with it and we connect with the nature. So that's what really nature does really well. And when we go into that solitude, we can also say there's so much, how do you say, like it's now the word poisonous arrows come in, but when we are in the city, when we are connected with all these modern life pressures, the gadgets and everything, there's constant bombardment of the information, and the mind gets really agitated, and when mind gets agitated, the body gets agitated. So it's basically, you mentioned stillness. So when mind is agitated but our body is still, that's really hard, it's harmful, right? But if we move the body and our mind is calm, that is fantastic. And it doesn't have to be, I don't know, gym or big practice and exercise. Doing that in nature and allowing ourselves to experience self, right? Who am I? How am I experiencing this moment? Tons of research has been done of what benefits that does to the brain. And your whole nervous system was reset so that when on the first kind of like entry point that something is triggering or something is giving high pressure, your nervous system was not reactive,
Yes. And
right? So that's
so how do you help clients learn how to develop that solitude and stillness?
mm,
I mean, particularly in a busy world where they may have kids, they certainly have work, they've got neighbors, they've got all of this stuff going on, they've got social media and on and on and on. What do you do to teach someone how to develop solitude in their lives?
mm. Well, I'm a coach, and we are very careful not to mix coaching and teaching. I'm also a teacher, mindful self-compassion teacher. So I tend to do the work separately. So in coaching, being with a client, that 1 hour when we meet is actually a solitude in presence. It's all about that person. It's almost like, let me go into the deep dive of really seeing what is in there. that is to celebrate and what is bringing pain. So for busy executives, it's just such a precious moment. And not everyone is ready for that. A lot of people see coaching as let's move towards the goals and we achieve goals, right? So the context of me bringing mindfulness-based coaching is, so let's just stay with that a little bit and just notice what message is that providing. And when we go into the body as well, to hear what is the need behind the physical response of whatever is difficulties coming up. Such clear, simple messages coming. It's like, oh, I need rest, or I need to be acknowledged, or I need to celebrate, or I need warmth, I need love, right? And then we can move into coaching stuff and saying like, okay, that need that is coming up now, that this difficulty or difficult, unpleasant emotion or difficult sensation in your body showed. What are you going to do about that? Yeah. And in that way, they learn how to sit with what is happening in their own world.
And also find a way in which they can experience solitude in some way, whether it's to close the door and just be quiet. Absolutely. Or whatever that happens to be, do the meditation, whatever that happens to be. So as we near the close now, we've talked about a lot of things, but is there some specific message that comes to mind that you'd like to share with the audience as a kind of a short message?
I think this is the message. Pause.
Pause.
Don't be afraid of silence. We are bombarded with messages, with quick fix. Here is the wisdom. Just do this, do this. How about allow to sit in silence and not do anything?
All right. That's great. So how do people find you? And is your main focus, are you coaching people, or are you strictly teaching coaches how to coach people?
I do both. I'm a coach, and there's at times my clients would want to learn how to coach, but mostly I teach mindful self-compassion and mindfulness practices, and then from that people are really interested how to be certified in bringing both skills, mindfulness and coaching. I do that through BMC Academy.
So how do people find you if they're looking for help?
Yes. So you can reach me through the website, my personal website, where I kind of like play with some insights, poetry, blogs, and so on. There's a calendar there, so it's Dalida Turkovic with the C in the end, .com contact. And also through my website, bmcacademy.com, or it's beijingmindfulnessacademy.com, full name of the website. Both will work. And I love to meet with people in person. Is just to immediately schedule the time with me whenever the time slot is open, and I would love to have a conversation. Chemistry call, we call it.
Yeah. So give me your personal website again slowly so that people can understand what it is.
So it's my name, full name, www.Dalida Turkovic. It's C at the end, no H.com.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Dalida. This has been fantastic.
I'm really, I didn't even know that you're in Thailand. I lived in Phuket for a year. There you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
I decided I wouldn't want to live there. It is way too busy.
Absolutely. I understand. That's why I left as well.
Yeah. Exactly. But anyway, thanks so much. Your insights have been wonderful. And folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll join us again soon. And if you're looking for some help, reach out to her personal website. I think that would be of great value. So anyway, this is Dr. Doug saying namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.